So my name is Dontera Terrell, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Buckeye Review. And I am sitting here with Lilian Seenoi-Barr, saying that
Yes.
correctly. Okay, yes. Kenyan
Yeah.
politician and Northern Ireland's first Black mayor. So, like, how does it feel to be the first Black mayor of Northern Ireland?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's both a profound honor and a deeply personal milestone for me. It's a moment filled with pride, but also reflection. Because growing up in Kenya, I never imagined I would be in this position ever. And I'm actually aware that this moment represents so much more than my personal achievement. It's about the doors it opens for others, especially our young people from all communities, not just from minoritized communities, but obviously particularly from our minority community living in Northern Ireland, because it is an opportunity for them to see themselves in leadership, something that has not happened here since the Good Friday Agreement, apart from having only one person who was elected and from the Chinese community. So for our Black community, for young people, I think it is a momentous time for them. But on a personal level, it feels like a recognition of resilience, the hard work of those who came before me, who lived in this country, and a reflection of my own journey. I carry the stories and the struggles and the hopes of my community every day when I am working as mayor. But professionally, I think it is also significant for my position, because it has been seen as a call to action here in Northern Ireland. And since I became mayor, you can see there is more recognition and there's more discussions going on about race equality and race equity that had not happened before. So it means about creating those policies that are inclusive, making sure everyone feels seen, feel heard, and represented. So I see my opportunity, myself as an opportunity to really foster that real unity and to be able to break down barriers and create that inclusive society we've been working really hard to achieve here.
Yes, you actually said a few things. One, you don't take this role lightly. Like this is such an honor for you. You take it very seriously. And I feel like you also represent like you're paying it forward. You're passing the torch. Like you said, breaking down barriers, making sure that it's seen, it's visible, like you too can achieve this. So that's really great. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I do hope that it inspires others to believe that their dreams are valid, that it is not such a big dream to be a mayor of a city in a European country. If you live there, it's not such a big challenge that you can achieve it, and that we are stronger with diversity and having people like myself in position of authority is important for the community to grow and to embrace everyone within it.
And you also mentioned Good Friday Agreement. For
Yeah.
those who don't know, what is the Good Friday Agreement?
So Northern Ireland went through a period of conflict from 1972 to 1998, and there was a lot of people who lost their lives fighting for freedom. And the north of Ireland is part of Ireland that many, if you speak to them here, they feel that it was taken away from them as Irish people. It was colonized. So the Good Friday Agreement was really to create a community where Catholics and Protestants can coexist in peace together and can both embrace each other's traditions and beliefs and living side by side with peace. So America is a co-guarantor of the peace process. We really benefited a lot. And I see myself as one of the beneficiaries of the peace process, which the Good Friday Agreement came about in 1998. So that is when really a lot of people started coming here, particularly from the European communities. They started coming here since the millennium in 2000. because now there was peace and people could come and live here. That's why it's while 2024 we made history, and there was a Chinese lady who also became a member of the Legislative Assembly. We still don't have that full diversity, but that's because of the legacy of the troubles.
Wow. Look,
Yeah.
thank you for that crash course because I wasn't aware either. That's why.
Yeah, it is a very interesting place to live with this rich, rich culture and tradition, but a deep, dark history too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what challenges did you encounter during your upbringing, and how did those experiences shape your resilience?
You know, looking back on my upbringing, I feel incredibly fortunate as one of 14 children. I grew up with a very strong family support. So my parents worked tirelessly to provide us with a good education. And being number 11 in the family, I benefited from the path my older siblings had already created for us. I think in many ways, they faced more challenges than myself, particularly growing up as a Maasai woman and a Maasai girl child. I was so lucky because I grew up with my two sisters had already gone through a lot of challenges. So we could learn from them.
Mhm.
And I was able to grow up in a loving environment that really valued that education and opportunity for women. So, however, I think my experience as a teenager and adult are where I've encountered more significant challenges. I went to a boarding school, and which had its positives and negatives. You're separated with your siblings, with your dad and mom, and you're growing up by yourself, really, in a good setup. But also, it was necessary for me to have an education and a good education. But I was lucky because I went in the same school with my sisters, two of my sisters. So we grew up very, very close. And that's why I said it had its positives and its negative. So I had a wonderful childhood overall. I cannot really say any challenges really when I was growing up. And when I left Kenya also, I had a really good life. I finished school in Kenya. I had a great job. So I'm not that typical, stereotypical African woman that people think had really gone through a lot of hardship to be where I am at the moment.
Do you think that's a misconception that many people have in terms of African women or just throughout the continent?
Absolutely. I think there is a perception that Africa is very poor and everyone who have succeeded has gone through a lot of hardship and was not able, that they have just grew up in a small house, maybe living 6 or 7 of them in one room. That's while it could be true for others, it's not for everyone. Africa is a very rich continent. And Kenya, I come from Kenya. There's a growing middle class in Kenya. And my father was a doctor, for example. My mother was a businesswoman, even though she didn't have an education. No, so not every African woman or man is poor or has grown up through poverty. People they may not be extremely rich, but living here in Europe, I've seen people who are more poorer than Kenyans.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's a misconception. And I do blame the media a lot. And I also blame colonialism because I think it is something that has been set up to dehumanize and devalue Africans generally and Black people generally. So we have to show that they've always been struggling in all their life. But it's not entirely true.
Yes. Thank you for saying that and for shedding light on that. And
Yeah,
also, just in terms of shedding light that it's not a one size fits all. Everyone is not the same. It's not a monolithic, culture or society as, like you said,
absolutely.
times it's painted to be.
Yeah,
So, mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And as a Kenyan refugee, if you could offer one piece of advice to refugees seeking to rebuild their lives, what would it be?
It will be this. Remember that you are a human being first before any label that may have been placed on you. I was a refugee 5 years of my 14 years that I have lived in Northern Ireland. But that chapter is now over. It's the past tense for me today. I am a proud citizen of Ireland. I'm no longer a refugee. I'm no longer seeking refuge. I got that refuge. I'm now a citizen and I'm going on with my life. I'm able to visit Kenya also. However, during that time when I was a refugee, I learned a powerful lesson. You continue to be yourself, no matter where you are or what you are called, because the label isn't you. It's important to integrate in the community that your adopted home. Ireland is now my adopted home. So I worked really hard to I integrate, get to know the community really well. Don't feel that you have to assimilate, because I think this is where people go wrong. You feel like you have to strip yourself, your identity, and embrace a new identity and new cultures that you may not be comfortable. You cannot forget where you have come from. So you have to keep your own identity. I think your story, your background, your culture are your strengths, not limitations, because many may see that I cannot be my authentic self because I have to fit into this new environment that I live. I think you'll be respected more. Certainly, that's what I see as an individual, because I've kept my own identity and I'm very proud to be a Maasai woman here. So be open to opportunities and don't be afraid to share your own story or the challenges you have experienced, because those are what makes you who you are. But one encouragement, please challenge perception everywhere you go. There's always perceptions of when you're a refugee, you're a vulnerable person. I always say vulnerability comes from the context of the community you have joined. Refugees are people who are very resilient. They have gone through so much adversity to be where they are. They are made vulnerable by the policies that have been put place in countries that sometimes refuse to absorb them as part of the society. So it's really about keeping that resilient, working smart, and remember that your identity and worth comes from within, not from any external label that you're given.
So, with that being said, how would you define yourself in 3 words?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I was looking at that question and I thought, how would I really define myself? And I thought, resilient. I think some people may say a tribalizer, because I've become the first person ever to be elected as a Black person, but also extremely brave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And during your time when you were a refugee, did you ever feel alone in a sense, or have you always felt that sense of community regardless of where you were?
Oh, I have always felt part of the community. When I came here to Northern Ireland, I already had a community with me. There were a lot of Irish people. I think there is no better place to acquire refuge than Ireland, because you are embraced, you are respected, you're seen as someone who is going to be given a hand up, not hands out. That's how I see it. Not everyone, racism exists everywhere, and we have racism here. And I genuinely believe that there are so many people within our community here who reject it. That's for the reason why I am mayor, because you're seen as a person rather than the color of your skin or the label you have been given. So I've always been part of a community. I'm lucky. I speak English. They speak English. Easier for me to integrate. I'm also an extrovert. I speak with a lot of people and I'm very outgoing. So I have never felt alone, which has been really amazing for me.
That is truly amazing,
Yeah,
definitely. And
yeah.
you often speak about being a Maasai woman. So, as an advocate and prominent campaigner for gender rights, focusing on forced marriage and female genital mutilation, can you share the long-term implications? of like a forced marriage and female genital mutilation for Maasai women and their communities?
Yeah, I think, well, the work I did in the community was about 14 years ago since I was directly involved in this work. But the issue of forced marriage and female genital mutilation among Maasai women is still very real, even though progress has been made. Laws have changed in Kenya, which is amazing. It's now illegal to circumcise a girl or marry anyone under 18. But unfortunately, these practices still happen in some areas. The long-term implications of forced marriage or female genital mutilation are actually profound because physically and emotionally, from a health perspective, girls as young as 12 or 14 are still growing, and forcing them into marriage or subjecting them to female genital mutilation can have devastating consequences for them. These girls face serious health risks, from complications or during childbirth to life-threatening infections and even death from excessive bleeding. And this has happened in real life. But beyond the physical harm, there's always an emotional trauma. And I know that there's a lot of programs that are being run, particularly in America, to try and support women who have already gone through female genital mutilation. And these practices, they really do strip the girls their autonomy and rob them of their childhood. So at a community level, the ripple effects are just as damaging for everyone, because you're limiting the girl's potential and keeping the entire community trapped in the cycle of poverty. But I have to say, I'm really impressed by the progress, particularly in Kenya, because they have really embraced education. There's a lot of girls who are now going to school. When we were growing up, we were a few of us in schools, but I see there's now a lot of young girls who are attaining really good qualifications. They are inspired to go and be that provider within their families and work hard just through education.
And so, with that being said, what role do you believe like men or boys can play in supporting gender rights or reproductive health? Like, how can they be effectively involved?
I think men are the ones who are marrying young girls, so they need to stop. You also need to stop looking at vulnerable women to be your wives. A 12-year-old is a child, really, is not an adult. Uh, to support that is to challenge the traditions. Well, want an educated woman, want a strong woman to be your wife rather than a child. I think that's one way of supporting women. I'm incredibly proud of my own brothers and sisters, because when I was in Kenya, I used to work with my brothers to challenge female genital mutilation. They are the biggest feminist in the family than even us as women. And I can see that from other families now. And it's so important to promote that when we are talking about gender equity or challenging traditions that are oppressing women, this is not just a battle for women. Men should also be at the forefront.
Absolutely, for sure. That's why I wanted to make sure I asked just in terms,
Yeah,
like you said. And shout out to your brothers. Kudos to them.
absolutely. Yeah.
And as a Maasai woman, what elements of your culture and identity do you take the most pride in?
Oh my God. I have to say I really loved these questions because um, there's a lot. There's a lot that I take immense pride, especially with my Masai attire. And some people might view our clothing as costumes. They are not costume. They are part of our daily lives. We wear them every time. And you might have seen that I am so proud of wearing my Masai tradition even here, even in my job. I feel a deep connection to my heritage every time I wear my Maasai dresses and my beadwork, which you can see I'm wearing them even right now. Everywhere I go, I do have a piece of my tradition. But I also take pride in our traditional diet, which is deeply rooted in nature and health. Like, for example, milk, goat meat, wild vegetables, and herbs. And these are staples in my culture and are incredibly nourishing also. They reflect a deep respect for the land and its resources, and they are an essential part of who we are as a people. But also, I'm so proud of my language. I genuinely believe you are nothing without your language, and your identity is not complete if you don't have your language. My Maasai language is something that I practice all the time. I never speak to anyone who is from the Maasai community in English or Swahili or any other language that I speak. I speak with them in Maasai because it's part of me. It's the cornerstone of my identity and the direct links to my roots. So I'm very proud of my culture, my dress, our diet, almost everything really, apart from female genital mutilation and early marriages, everything else about the Maasai culture, absolutely proud of it.
I love this interconnectedness with you, always carrying a piece of your culture with you wherever you are. Like you said, whether it's through, your beating, whether it's through the type of your diet, just it's always just with you. And to your point
Absolutely.
earlier that you said, be you, don't strip that away. Don't strip
Yeah.
your culture away. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I read one of your Instagram posts, and your caption said, if you keep playing the same game, you'll continue getting the same results. It's time to push some boundaries and start doing things differently. Hard work versus smart work, which is very great advice. I feel like I learned that later, like later years. I'm still learning. So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, how does hard work and smart work differ?
Hard work and smart work differ immensely. It is in how we approach challenges. Hard work is about putting into the hours, wanting to do everything yourself and being in control. That's hard work. Smart work, on the other hand, is knowing when to delegate. Some people find it very difficult to delegate because you trust yourself and you want to make sure you're doing everything. But when you take a step back and when you let other people use their skills and expertise to help you, you succeed. It's about being strategic, really. Working smart is about being strategic. It's about using your resources effectively. And it's about recognizing that collaboration is a strength and not a weakness. So for me, I've definitely had moments where hard work alone wasn't enough, particularly in leadership. When I'm trying to do everything myself, I will never be able to succeed. It's very limiting. So when I started to work smarter by trusting others to help me do the work, allowing them to shine, and also focusing on the bigger picture, particularly here in Northern Ireland, that's when real progress started happening. So, and in our context here, politically, for example, we are operating in a very peculiar political landscape. And if we keep voting the same way and expecting different outcomes, we are stuck. In that status quo, we still have two traditions that are dominating the leadership here. And sometimes it's really hard to get things done. So for me, pushing boundaries and creating real change, we have to be open to new opportunities and new approaches. That's about embracing difference. It's about learning from others. That's where we come in as people from minoritized communities. That is why I said if you keep on playing the same game, expecting different results, it's not going to work. So we have to some people say if you reinvent the wheel, that might be seen unnecessary. For me, I actually think sometimes it is really important that for rapid change to happen, we have to shake things up. And that's meaning we can reinvent that wheel and push boundaries. And it's all about others, allowing others to excel. But ultimately, you become the winner when you work with others.
I when you just said that, because also it's like a return on investment on your time. So to your point, so you can focus on the bigger picture as opposed to, I feel like sometimes when you try to do everything by yourself, you end up in a hamster wheel, just no progress, just keep going and going and going, barely
Yeah,
making it.
absolutely. You know, you could be going out there campaigning to bring people, to persuade people, but if you're doing your managing and you're campaigning and you won't have all the time and you're running the organization, to work smarter is actually to identify your leadership skills because it's part of it and learn how to delegate, which is sometimes a skill that is required to be able to trust somebody else to do the job just as you could do, or even better. Before I became mayor, I still ran the organization. But once I was announced as being mayor, there are people who thought that the organization will collapse because I'm everything in that organization. And they just did not know the talent I work with in the organization, how they are interconnected with every single aspect of my work and the delegation that I always delegate. I lead from the outset. People see me. I'm the one who goes to meet with politicians. I'm the one who fundraise. I'm the one who does that. But I don't run the organization. That I build the capacity and allowed people to make decisions and to shine and give them the opportunity to be able to do that. And that's why the organization was able to be more sustainable, raise the profile, because I'm not doing everything by myself. So that's, to me, is working smarter, is identifying other people's strengths and helping them to showcase that. Because ultimately, when they're doing well, you are the one succeeding.
Oh, no, absolutely. You all succeed at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
I'm curious, with your schedule and your busy day to day and just
yeah.
everything that you have on your plate, what makes you smile the most?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? When I go to places, for example, I went to a school this morning and I met these young children, primary one and primary two. And when they saw me, they were just screaming. That really makes my heart warm. And when I go to the community every day and people want to ask me a lot of questions, they share their lives, they open their world for me. And I live in a predominantly white society. 99% of people who live here are white. And for them to embrace me, it just gives me a smile, honestly. Everywhere I go, when I see people embracing me, accepting and really wanting to show me that they care and love me, it really, really makes my heart warm.
Yes. I feel
Yeah.
like and it from the inside out, it makes your heart smile, it makes you smile. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And my last question, what legacy do you hope to leave that will inspire future leaders and create change value in Northern Ireland?
I really want to leave a legacy of inclusivity and resilience and courage leadership, because I think we lack courage leadership in Northern Ireland. I want future leaders to see that real progress can only happen when we embrace diversity and lift each other up. Regardless of our backgrounds or belief, there are people who don't believe, particularly as minoritized communities, people would always want to put us in a one specific box. When I became the invitation I was getting, I was turning them down because it had everything to do with race equality, race issues. And I wanted people to know that I am more than that, more than being a Black person,
Mhm.
that I can talk about other issues that are more strategic for the community. So Northern Ireland has this unique history, and I genuinely believe that its future will only be shaped by leaders who understand that unity doesn't mean uniformity, because that's another problem we have here, but it means respecting and valuing our differences while we are working together for the common good. That respect the person and respect the knowledge and skills that they bring to the table. So that's what I want my legacy to show, and that pushing boundaries and challenging the status quo and daring to think differently. It's not only possible, but actually necessary for us to have that meaningful change. So I really hope that I'll be able to inspire future leaders and to be bold, to listen more and than just speak, and to have that courage to lead also with empathy. With the issues of migration, it's about demonizing people all the time and scapegoating minoritized communities. But if we were leading with heart and empathy, we will see them as people to start with. And I just do hope that when I leave my office, I would have inspired people to really look at all communities as a community and not different communities. Because if we see people as one, we'll be able to really look at the challenges every one of us within our community is facing. So I really do hope that I be able to contribute and in continuous challenge and embracing that innovation and build communities where every voice is valued.